In the music industry, there is nothing Glenn Wheatley couldn't do. Artist, manager, entrepreneur, he was the genius behind John Farnham and his enduring best friend. But Glenn's reach was so much wider, and today his friends and colleagues reflected on a big life.
In Glenn Wheatley, we've lost a titan of the music industry.
He was a game changer.
Just a great personality. It's so hard to imagine him not being around.
An innovator and a gentleman, Glenn Wheatley lived a big life.
I can't tell you what a privilege it is for me to be in front of you today.
Passing away overnight at the age of 74, his friends say the privilege was all theirs.
He was such an enthusiastic guy, you know, always positive, upbeat, sort of loving, caring for his family, and adored Gaynor and the kids and everything.
Paul Dainty is one of Australia's most successful music promoters, partnering with Glenn on John Farnham's concerts. But more than a business partner, Dainty remembers a loyal and steadfast friend.
Lots of ideas. So, you know, lots of hugs. You know, I'm getting emotional talking to him about it.
The news also hitting hard for mate Eddie Maguire.
It's just so heartbreaking, Seb. I mean, as I said, I've got in my diary meetings to catch up with him in the next couple of weeks. Last night we were all shattered. We were all texting each other, all speaking to each other. We couldn't believe it. In fact, Glenn has been working with me in recent times, only just before Christmas. And, you know, one of the things he was working on was to try and get a big concert at the MCG to welcome Melbourne and Australia back to show business, back to big concerts, and to get out of COVID.
Wheatley's fingerprints can be found on numerous Australian success stories, but to begin to tell his, we need to turn up the radio to the 1960s, where his career began as the blonde bassist for the Masters Apprentices.
Now turn up your radio.
Making the move from musician to manager, in the 1970s, Glenn would take a group from Melbourne to the world, guiding the Little River Band to the holy grail for Aussie acts, making it in America.
You have to remember Little River Band had already had success here in Australia in the mid to late 70s, but he managed to get them a record deal in America whereby they ended up having 10 singles in the US Billboard Top 20, which was unheard of for any band in Australia at the time.
Aussie music historian and author Jane Gazzo.
Little River Band's success, of course, opened the doors up for the likes of Rick Springfield and Men at Work and INXS.
LRB lead singer Glenn Shorrock remembering a dear friend.
Glenn and I, you know, we hit it off together. We'd known each other since 1965. He was a very family-orientated guy, and he's just become a grandfather as well.
Ever the entrepreneur, Wheatley would observe the success of FM radio in America, a format that hadn't yet been used commercially down under. In 1980, he launched Eon FM in Melbourne, handpicking legendary DJ Lee Simon as the initial program director.
It was exciting. There was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of positivity, a lot of optimism, much of which was driven by Glenn. That was his way. He was the eternal optimist. He had wild and crazy ideas, most of which paid off.
But the greatest example of Wheatley's advocacy came in the bond he formed with John Farnham. Rejected by the industry in the early 80s, Farnham would turn to Wheatley for support.
As John famously says, he put his money where my mouth is, in the sense that he mortgaged his house in order to pay for what would become Whispering Jack.
Upon the release of Whispering Jack, Glenn booked John on Hey Hey It's Saturday to perform You're the Voice. It's a night Hey Hey legend Wilbur Wilde has never forgotten.
Daryl suggested we devote the entire show to that album. So we had Hey Hey, It's Whispering Jack, and I stood beside Glenn Wheatley, and it was the all-star band, and Greg McCainch was playing bass, and as the opening strains of You're the Voice started, it was the first time I'd heard it. I just gave Glenn a nudge, and I tell you, I thought it was the biggest thing since sliced bread, and his face was beaming. He had this beaming smile, as did I. It was just a lovely moment I remember with Glenn.
There was no doubt to anyone on the studio floor that night that Glenn and John had a hit.
I reckon he knew, and I reckon I knew that he knew that this thing was just going to be explosive and platinum, 28 times. It was just one of the strongest feelings of success and togetherness and, incredible momentum.
But for all the highs, Wheatley endured his toughest days in 2007, pleading guilty to tax evasion and spending close to a year in prison, despite prosecutors initially asking for a suspended sentence. Wheatley emerging with resilience, thanks in part to the support of his loving wife, Gaynor.
What were your first words to Glenn?
Shut the door, put your seatbelt on.
And his words back to you?
Something like, I think I love you, honey.
It was a love that would last 40 years, with recent photos revealing Wheatley, the family man, enjoying last Christmas with Gaynor and children Tim, Samantha and Cara.
Even when I saw him when he had challenges in business or whatever, he always had the optimistic outcome in his mind.
Molly Meldrum told A Current Affair today, Glenn had music in his heart and he loved his family. I'm in total shock. A statement echoed by Farnham Band director Chong Lim.
The John Farnham Band is a family atmosphere, and we're all close, and Glenn is a major part of it. And and it's very sad when you lose a family member.
John himself was sighted late today at the Wheatleys' home, releasing his own statement reading, "Our family are devastated at the loss of our friend. We will miss you, Glenn, and promise to be there for Gaynor and the family." The voice, far from alone in grieving the loss of a man whose heart and mind brought us so many happy memories.
He leaves a big hole. We send our thoughts and love to Gaynor and the family.